What's going on? It's the Polygon Don, and today I'm back with another 5 choice cuts of the underrated variety from my PS3 collection. There's a couple of great movie tie-in games, a combat-heavy arcade racer, a JRPG with insane mechanics, and more. So let's get into it. We're going to start things off on a lighter note today with Disney's G-Force, but don't let this kid-friendly movie tie-in fool you into thinking that it's just another lackluster cash grab. This is mechanically sound and low-key brilliant all round if you ask me. It wasn't a complete walk in the park either, with some areas of the game providing a genuine challenge that was welcome and unexpected. The plot is very much an alternate version of the same storyline seen in the movie, but there are some changes and differences that should keep things interesting for those die-hard fans that know the film inside out. But essentially it centres on a group of highly proficient guinea pigs that utilise their skills in espionage and are equipped with the latest advanced technology in order to take down an evil billionaire and his army of robotic household appliances that have gone rogue. Played in the third person, you'll mainly be controlling Darwin as you fight and puzzle your way through linear levels in a variety of differing environments. In your way are numerous household appliances that have transformed into evil and deadly robots. Some of these designs were actually really cool. Think swarms of flying beard trimmers, toasters that can fry you in an instant, even the humble water cooler can't be trusted as it grows legs and chases after you. Every enemy feels genuinely unique and how you take them on is no different. Thankfully, Darwin has an extensive arsenal at his disposal, and switching between weapons in order to find the best tool for the job was a breeze. The electric whip, for example, is great for swatting multiple flying enemies, while the plasma gun was perfect for neutralising distant foes ploughing you with projectiles. Throughout your journey in the game, you can collect Saber Sense chips, which act as the in-game currency used to upgrade your weapons. This is done via a kind of vending machine type thing, usually found at the start or at the end of a particular area, and can also be used to replenish ammo. Boss fights were cool too. They weren't a drastic departure from your encounters during the rest of the game, but do up the stakes enough to make those encounters feel somewhat separate and unique. Aside from combat, however, the other major facets of the game are the environmental puzzles and casual platforming. Some of the puzzles were genuinely a little tricky too, especially in the latter stages of the game, requiring you to be fairly familiar with the tools at your disposal, as well as taking full advantage of your silent little flying companion, which I think is a mosquito or a gnat. This little dude is crucial at infiltrating areas that even a guinea pig is too big for. Switching between them is as simple as pressing a face button and just as quick, with some puzzles making it an absolute necessity to progress. It's a very good looking game and runs fantastically, but due to the environment it is set in, a design lab or an office space for example, it can at times look a little sterile and bland. Not so much with the character or enemy designs, just in its environment. Not a huge deal, but by the end of my playthrough it was getting more and more noticeable. The game does have a stereoscopic 3D mode too, so if you can still find a copy of the game that includes the 2 pairs of 3D glasses that it was originally packaged with and are still rocking a 3D capable TV, then you're onto a winner, as this seems to be a great example of that short-lived and, dare I say, gimmicky technology. Either way, it's a great game that I highly recommend if you're looking for some family-friendly action to add to your collection.
Like now? Somebody? Anybody? I'm so done for. Hey!
You should lose some weight, boy. Oh, yeah. Piece of cake.
Let's get out of here.
Summers! Behind you! Pierce, we have to keep them contained.
No! Open the door!
Blacksite Area 51, or just simply Blacksite as it is known here in Europe, is a first-person shooter that released very early on in the PS3's lifecycle. It centres on Captain Aaron Pierce and his Echo Squad of Special Forces commandos as they investigate a supposed weapons bunker in Iraq in 2003. Accompanied by the head of an elite science division within the military, Dr. Noah Weiss, they battle their way through the local Iraqi army until they locate the bunker in question. Unfortunately, what they find aren't just weapons of the traditional kind. An alien crystal-like artifact is mutating and transforming humans and wildlife trapped within, turning them into something much more otherworldly and terrifying. 3 years later, and back in the US, a heavily armed militia has taken control of Area 51. Not long after, an outbreak of alien mutations identical to those encountered in Iraq have infested the heavily guarded base and its surrounding area. Echo Squad and Dr. Weiss are summoned to reclaim it due to their prior experience with what the game now collectively calls the Xenos. Touching on conspiracy theories of super soldiers and questionable military programs, the story is actually fairly interesting, if a little juvenile at times, but it does provide the framework for a decent first-person shooter story campaign. Gameplay mainly consists of shooting anything that moves and isn't part of your team. While only 2 weapons can be equipped at any given time, there are a total of 6 different weapons to choose from that vary in scope and abilities. There's also grenades to make use of, as well as obligatory and awkward feeling melee attacks. One of the main differences that this game has going for it are the AI-controlled squad mates that accompany you through pretty much the entire game that you can issue commands to. You can instruct them to move to a particular location, breach a door, focus their firepower on a specific enemy, man a mounted turret, or plant explosive charges, and these all add to a deeper and more engaging gameplay experience. It's not overly complex either, and are mainly context sensitive on what is around you and what you're currently looking at, but does make it feel a little more tactical than just take cover, shoot, reload, repeat. There's a regenerative health system in place too, which makes the overall experience feel a lot more arcadey in nature, which was also welcome. And there are also sections of the game where you'll be required to operate vehicles. Unfortunately, they feature a rather awkward control scheme. You push the left analog stick forward to accelerate and back to reverse, while the right stick is used to steer, and this just feels kind of antiquated and unnatural. But then that can be attributed to the fact that this was released hot on the heels of the PS2 era, where developers were still figuring out the best configuration for these scenarios, and the standardized vehicle controls of using R2 and L2 were yet to be tried and tested. Whatever the reason, the fact remains that driving anything in Blacksite left a lot to be desired. What is a nice touch, however, is that there's a squad morale system in place which can have either positive or negative implications in how your squad behaves in battle. For instance, defeating enemies quickly or landing headshots will increase squad morale, and at high morale, your team will fight much more effectively and can take more damage before being incapacitated. Taking damage will lower this invisible meter, and at low morale, squad mates will contribute a lot less to firefights, cowering behind cover as they take more damage and can be injured or incapacitated a lot more easily. This, coupled with the issuing of commands, does provide a somewhat more tactical experience and overall elevates the moment-to-moment gameplay. Look, don't all rush out and grab a copy, as it's not perfect by any means, but a lot of fun can still be had here even to this day. Providing you can find a copy for a decent price, which last time I looked is still very much achievable, you should have a fun time with this and can easily complete it over a weekend.
That is one huge worm!
Amazing. The spores are spreading and adapting much
Evasive.
more rapidly than I expected.
What the hell are you talking about? Crescent City, look at that!
Another movie tie-in game that utilises that 3D stereoscopic tech that was being pushed by PlayStation at the time of release, Avatar the Game is a third-person shooter and melee-focused action-adventure that serves as a non-canon prequel to the first film. It also boasts a lot of the same Hollywood acting talent from the movie, reprising their roles and lending their voices to their digital likenesses. Sigourney Weaver, Michelle Rodriguez and Giovanni Ribisi all return, and they definitely make the game feel all the more authentic for it. Set 2 years before the events of the first movie, you'll start the game playing as a lowly military grunt who, after arriving at Pandora, is assigned to an area named Blue Lagoon, which is pretty much the tutorial area of the game. Your first mission will be to rescue some cornered Marines from a pack of Viper Wolves. Here you'll be taught the basics of combat that will carry you through most of the game. As a Marine, you can carry a host of varied weaponry and generally do more damage with said weaponries, but it's not long until the game lets you test drive an actual avatar, and it's here that things get a lot more interesting in terms of gameplay, in my opinion at least. As an avatar, you only get one firearm to use, which is an assault rifle of some description, I believe, but you also get to wield more primitive weapons like bows, crossbows and wooden clubs, etc. While less technologically advanced in the hands of an avatar, they can still be very deadly. Your size and speed whilst in the avatar state is noticeable and formidable. When targeting humans, it is far quicker and more efficient just to charge at them, as you can usually one-shot them with a melee attack. And while a bow has a much slower rate of fire to a machine gun, their accuracy and range are far superior. So for me at least, while it's still relatively fun to run around Pandora as a Marine, it's the setting that only really differentiates it from the many other third-person shooters released during this gen. It's not until you get control of an avatar that this game comes into its own and genuinely starts to kick ass. I don't want to delve too much deeper into the story to save spoilers, but at a certain point early in the game, you'll be required to choose a side to fight for, the Na'vi or the Marines. They each offer different weapons and skill sets and overall gameplay experiences, as well as the environments themselves, all differing depending on who you decide to share your allegiance with. Another nice addition is that the world of Pandora itself, along with its fauna and flora, will react differently depending on who you choose. This is a planet teeming with plants, as anyone familiar with the movies will know, and a lot of them will actively try to harm you should you be playing as a Marine, while avatars are able to walk past them completely undisturbed and unharmed. It's not a major mechanic or anything, but it was a pretty cool surprise. As a Marine, you'll be able to commandeer a variety of military vehicles, and as an avatar, you'll gain access to mounts and your very own carnivorous Toruk. Unfortunately, flying a Toruk in this game wasn't as exhilarating as I had hoped. Sure, it's down to this generation's technical limitations, but I just felt like they should be faster and more nimble in the air. Maybe that's just me though. But ultimately, I'm glad they were still included, as it wouldn't have felt right to have an avatar game without them. You can level up using experience points accumulated by completing mission objectives. Unfortunately, there's no skill tree or general customization here though, as the process instead is linear. Each level gained rewards you with better versions of gear or skills you already own, and you have 4 skills and 4 weapons equipped at any given time. The skills are quite cool though. You can call in airstrikes, summon wildlife to do your bidding if you're an avatar, or for the more defensive options you can heal, boost defenses, increase movement speed and even turn invisible. What was a genuinely nice surprise though was the included yet completely optional Conquer minigame. In this Risk-like strategy game, you can convert XP gained from the main campaign into credits, and then use those credits to buy troops ranging from infantry, heavy ground units and air assault units, with the aim of capturing or reclaiming territories from your enemies. Captured areas then reward you with passive enhancements like increased critical rates or boosted damage and health that you can then use back in the main game. It's a nice little loop that feeds back in on itself, and while not compulsory, does provide a cool change of pace should you want it. Avatar the game on PS3 is something that I very rarely hear people talk about, and even with its shortcomings, for the very low price that you can still find the game at in used stores or eBay for example, it's well worth picking up and trying out. Blur from long-lost developers Bizarre Creations is one of those rare instances where real-world locations and authentic cars that actually exist are utilised in a vehicular combat arcade-style racer, and it is executed to perfection. Think Mario Kart power-ups but with a Need for Speed aesthetic, and if that sounds like a bloody good time, it's because it is. In career mode, you'll be tasked with entering races and challenges that are set in real-world locations like the LA River Canals or the streets of London, for example. Placing third or higher will not only allow you to move on to the next challenge, but it will also net you fan points. And it's these accumulating points that will assist you in progressing through career mode as you purchase more cars and specialised parts. There are also instances where during the race you will encounter a fan icon in the middle of the track. Passing over these will trigger mini challenges like driving through a set amount of gates, shooting another car with a particular weapon type, or performing an extra long drift, for example. Successfully completing these mini challenges will reward you with a fan points boost. But it's not just about finding those racing lines here though, as there are power-ups to collect and use against your opponents that are placed at regular intervals along the track. There are 8 in total and 5 of them are weapons. The majority can be fired either forwards or backwards, making them both offensive and defensive. My favourite was the missile that when fired in front of you locks onto an opponent and tracks them for a short distance before making contact. And if launched behind you, acts as a sort of stationary explosive waiting for the unlucky soul that doesn't notice it in time. The non-weapon type power-ups are what you'd expect: a short-lived shield to protect you from incoming missiles, a wrench that repairs any damage to your car, and a nitro boost. You can carry a maximum of 3 power-ups at any given time, which you can switch between and activate at will depending on the situation you find yourself in. While the vehicles are real-world cars, they don't really feature as much customization options as we've come to expect in more modern racers. Aside from a colour wheel to choose from, there's not much there to make them feel distinct to you, unfortunately. A minor grievance though that probably won't bother many of you out there. Each car comes with its own stats and a health gauge. Taking damage will not only slow you down in the race, but it will also chip away at your car's health. As just previously mentioned, there are power-ups that can restore any damage incurred, but should you not find one in time and your car's health reaches 0, you'll receive a heavier time penalty as the game resets you on the track. With every second being absolutely critical, ideally you want to prevent this as much as possible. Regularly checking your rearview mirror to see what's coming at you from behind and countering any impending damage with a well-timed backwards bolt blast can and will keep you in the race for longer. Not only that, but anyone in front of you can do exactly the same thing, so trying to catch a slipstream behind someone in this game usually ends very badly. There's a lot to keep your eyes on and consider in this game if you want to place first on the podium, and even more so if you want 100% each track and all the mini challenges therein. At the end of each group of events there will be a specific character that you'll need to beat, usually in a one-on-one race that essentially acts as a boss for that area. Fittingly, these are generally the biggest challenge in the game, as not only do they usually have a superior car to the one you're racing them in, but they also adopt their own unique driving style that differs quite dramatically from the other AI racers found in the standard events. Plus, they have customised cars that include modifications that provide enhanced functionality to the standard power-ups, making things even harder for you. However, if you do manage to take them down, you will then get access to their specific mods as well as a load of fan points, so they're well worth completing. There was a healthy online multiplayer attached to at some point, but the official PS3 servers are now shut down. There may be ways to gain access for those trophy hunters out there, but you'll need to research that yourself, as that's way beyond my remit. I also think the PC version has had its online lobbies revived in the last couple of years, but to be honest, I'm just going off a Reddit post made back in 2019, so again, investigate that yourselves if that's something that interests you. What the PS3 version does have, however, is a brilliant 4-player split-screen multiplayer mode, which is an insane amount of fun for when you have some mates over. A massively underrated game from an underrated studio that is unfortunately no longer with us. Blur was their penultimate game, with James Bond 007 Bloodstone being their last release before shuttering their doors for good. Another brilliant game that I've already covered in a previous entry in this series. If you like your arcade racers and haven't played this yet, or if you're looking for a great local multiplayer to add to your collection, then do yourself a favour and grab a copy of Blur as soon as you can.
These are all or nothing powered up races against a single opponent. Cross the finish line first or wreck your opponent to win. This is no easy feat. These guys are tough. They're at the top of their game. You'll have to drive faster and fight harder than ever. There's no second places here, but win, and you'll win big. The prize is your opponent's car and mod. You'll also earn lights for your victory. Now go for it.
From Star Ocean and Valkyrie Profile developers Tri-Ace, Resonance of Fate is a JRPG that includes a combat system which is a hybrid of real-time and turn-based controls and are definitely not for the faint of heart. In fact, it's this combat system that makes the game so polarising to those that play it, as there really isn't much out there like it. This creates quite the barrier to entry for new players, as you're having to factor in strategy, real-time and turn-based action with a lot of little combat nuances in between. Even the world map and exploration mechanic in this doesn't follow standards set by other games in the genre, and instead adopts its own strange take. Set on Earth in the distant future, the planet is now hostile to all human life as pollution levels in the atmosphere have triggered massive environmental changes. On the brink of extinction, humanity creates Basal, a gigantic air purification module controlled by the Zenith system. As conditions worsened in the land surrounding Basal, the remnants of humanity gathered around it and built a great city at the base of Zenith's tower. With Basal and the Zenith system controlling the surrounding environment to make it habitable for humans, it now has humanity at its beck and call and takes full advantage. Determining each person's social standing at birth and where they will reside, it even regulates each individual's exact lifespan. Over countless years, Basal evolves into a class-driven society with those at the top of the tower calling the shots, dubbed the Cardinals. They eventually indoctrinate the populace into a religion deifying the Zenith system. Your band of charming and likeable heroes take on odd jobs across the city, getting things done for their clientele that only they can. Clients include both the ruling Cardinals and the inhabitants from the lower levels of the tower. As you take on more missions, you begin to encounter instances of people unexpectedly changing their fate and therefore going against their predetermined path set by Zenith. Many more revelations occur, but I won't be sharing any more details about it here, but the story is actually really cool and had its hooks in me very early on. The combat system employed here involves a blend of real-time and turn-based action and does it somewhat seamlessly, even incorporating strategy elements into it as well, as you can use objects in your surroundings as cover, for example. During a turn, you can freely move around the arena you're fighting in or perform an action such as attack, but this is all limited to the number of action points available to each character. Your turn ends when you either attack or have exhausted all of your action points. Initiating an attack triggers a charging system. Once a target is selected, the attack charges up until the meter is full and the attack is unleashed. You can also charge the attack up multiple times for even more powerful attacks. The time required for a full charge depends on your proximity to your target. Closer enemies require less charge time, but this renders you more vulnerable to attack, which can interrupt your charge. This works both ways, so again, some strategy is needed to position yourself so that you can interrupt your opponent if they are charging up an attack of their own. Now, you can freely move around the battlefield as previously mentioned, but you also have the option to create predefined paths for your characters to follow. While moving along these paths, your characters will gain access to hero actions which make them immune to all incoming damage and speeds up charge times. However, activating these hero actions require the use of bezels. These items are gained via a variety of methods such as damaging enemy armor or killing them outright. But the coolest thing about these hero actions is that it allows your party members to attack whilst jumping in the air, unleashing these specialised firearm manoeuvres unique to each character that just look super stylish and deal large amounts of damage. And there's a lot more to the bezels too, as they not only allow you to activate hero actions, but they also act as a safeguard to character defeat. With enough bezels remaining, receiving damage that would otherwise kill you instead causes your character to be knocked into the air with your bezel shards scattering across the battlefield. If you don't pick yourself up and collect those shards in time, you can enter a critical mode, which basically renders that character useless as they become incredibly distressed, leaving them unable to fire their weapons quickly or use hero actions, and they also take direct damage from pretty much every attack. And since it's game over the moment even just one of your party members fall in battle, you really don't want any of them going into critical mode. There's more to take into account too, like the two damage types in the game. The first is scratch damage, which is only dealt by party members wielding submachine guns. Scratch damage accumulates quickly but cannot kill an opponent. You then have to convert that damage into direct damage using characters equipped with either pistols or grenades, for example. So you basically need to soften an enemy up with scratch damage before you can actually harm them with direct damage. So, like I said, there's a metric ton of mechanics at play here, and I really don't blame anyone for bouncing off this, as it genuinely is an investment in both time and patience. But for those that persevere, you will be rewarded with a truly memorable and unique JRPG experience. Unconventional is probably the best way to put it. Everything about this game is unconventional, as it tries to carve out its own path and leave its own unique mark in the JRPG landscape. It doesn't always succeed, and I can see why the game is so polarising, but that just makes it far more interesting to me. It's quite odd in a lot of ways, and it's the oddities that seem to grab my attention more than the conventional these days, especially as I collect for older consoles. So for those of you out there that, like me, have a curiosity for the offbeat and the unorthodox, this strange JRPG and its unique mechanics are definitely something you should try out and experience for yourselves. A re-release of what they are calling the 4K HD edition for the PS4 and PC was released in 2018 and is probably the more definitive version to play. But what with it being digital only, those of you out there that want the physical copy will have to settle for either the PS3 or Xbox 360 versions. I personally played it on PS3 and had absolutely zero qualms with the experience. Alrighty then, there you go, another 5 underrated classics from the PlayStation 3's game library. Let me know down in the comments if any of these might be something you pick up in the future, or what you thought of them if you've already dived in. Also, if you liked the video and it's not too much trouble, then hit the like button as it genuinely helps out the channel quite a bit, and if you're new here, subscribe to keep updated on all future uploads. Next up will be Volume 10 of my PS4 Hidden Gems series with some absolutely incredible and unique games that I'll be showcasing. Stay tuned for that. But that's going to do it for today, gang, so until next time, take care, be good, and game on.